Alright, so now we're going to work on some graphical representations of the frequency distribution tables that we worked on before. We call these graphical representations histogram. A histogram is a vertical bar graph made from the data in a frequency distribution table. Along the x-axis are the class widths, or the class limits. And along the y-axis are either the frequencies or the relative frequencies. One thing that needs to be really clear is that there should be no gaps between the bars. Alright, so we did this in a previous video, but we got some data on the number of hours that classmates spent playing video games on the weekend, and that is right here. Excuse me. So now what we're going to do is we are going to organize that. So the first thing we want to do is we are going to want to label our axes. So that's what I'm going to do first. And so right here, this will be number of hours spent playing video games. And then over here on this horizontal axis, this is where we're going to put the frequencies. All right. So I'm going to pause the video for a second, but I'm going to show you we don't necessarily have to start the horizontal axis at 0. But one really key thing for histograms, one really key thing that we need to make sure we know for histograms is the vertical axis must start at 0. It's really important that this vertical axis over here, we got to start that at 0. The horizontal one, not necessary. So the horizontal one, our first was 0 to 4.99. And then we're going to go along the bottom. So I'm going to hit pause right now. I'm going to fill that in. I might end up typing it in here if that makes it more clear. And then we will label all, we're going to have 5 different bars because we have 5 classes. Alright, so I ended up typing these so they look a little nicer, but you can see that we've labeled these corresponding to what we have over there. Now, for the frequencies, we got to see what is our biggest frequency. I can see the largest frequency is 8. So can we count by ones? Can we go 1? Again, we have to start at 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That looks like it's going to work for us. So 0 to 4.99, we had a frequency of 3. So we're going to build that bar right there. The next one, same thing. The frequency of that one is 3. The next one is 4. And the next one is 7. And then the last one is 8. And again, you see a really nice picture here, and it starts to give you an idea of the shape of the data. So you can kind of see that it starts low and then gets high, and if you look at this, this looks like it tails to the left. So we would say that this data is skewed left. All right, the next type we're going to take a look at is a relative frequency distribution. Again, we did this relative frequency histogram, or I'm sorry, this relative frequency distribution table in another video. So I just recopied that and typed the values in here. We are going to use the exact same class limits on the bottom. So again, we're going to label our axis. So it will be number of hours spent playing video games. But on this horizontal axis, we're going to, instead of frequency, it's going to be relative frequency. All right. So we need to get those classes written. So we're going to, again, do the same number. We're going to have 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, And there's our 5th one. We're going to label them just like what we labeled in the previous graph. I'm going to hit pause right now. I'd like you to go ahead and fill those in. All right, so I get those values in there. Now I've got to build this vertical graph, so I need to count. I can't go 1%, 2%, 3%. I'm never going to make it because you can see my smallest one is 12%. So what are we going to count by? I want you to think about it. There's some options. I mean, we could count by, I wouldn't want to count by tens, right? There's not enough of them to count by tens. You could do it by fives. That would totally be fine. One thing that I noticed here, though, is that actually all of these are multiples of 4. So again, you could count by fives if you want, but just for the sake of keeping this graph looking really nice, I'm going to go ahead and count by 4s. So let's do that. This first one would be 4, right? And then 8, and then 12, and then 16, and then 20, and then 24, and then 28, and then 32, right? And then we would have 36 up here, which we don't need. So the first one is 12%, so we're going to build this up to 12% and down. Next one's the same. The next one is 16%. 28%. And then the last one's going to be 32%. And what you can see with this is when I'm going to scroll back up and take a look, the shape is actually exactly the same as it was above, but just rather than the frequencies, we're going to have the percentages.